Hello friends, welcome to Shauna Stitches. I'm Shauna and this is my crafty podcast where I talk about all the things that I've been working on lately. This is episode number 78 and today is November 19th, 2023. And it's been a long time since I've had a regular podcast episode. I can't even believe, I think it was in September. So both October and November have, all of September since I recorded all of October and then, a good part of November. But if you haven't seen, I have been posting my Geogradient progress and that took up most of my knitting time for exactly 1 month. So there wasn't a ton else to talk about and I guess I could have just repeated myself, but that doesn't seem like a very fun podcast. I'm drinking some black coffee in my I Love coffee mug with knitting design on it. That's why I had to have it, because I do love coffee, but also knitting. It's like the perfect combination, knitting and coffee. And I have a lot to talk about today, I think. I never know how long the podcasts are going to be. Some people say they don't have a lot to talk about and talk on for 45 minutes, and me, excuse me, I feel like even when I have a lot to talk about, it's like 25 minutes. So we'll see how fast or slow I get through everything. I do have some show notes I'm looking at on my computer. If you see me looking off to the side, that's why, to hopefully keep me on track. Before we get into it, I will say if you click down below on the more link or the arrow, whatever Google is doing at the moment. Is it Google? YouTube. YouTube is Google. I'm so confused. Anyway, if you click on that, it will show where you can find me both on Instagram and Ravelry. Excuse me. And if you look at each of the projects I talk about, there is a link directly to my Ravelry page. I do make quite a lot of notes in my projects usually. It will show the yarn, the needles, and anything else that I might find useful for the pattern or how I might have modified it for myself. Okay, I think that's all of it. To new and returning viewers, thank you so much for being here. I had a lot of new subscribers during the Geogradient post that I was making, so thank you and welcome. I am so happy to have you all here with me today. Okay, the first thing I have to show you, a finished object, is kind of a blast from the past. These are my September Desert Vista Dyeworks socks. I just have one on the blocker, but I do have two. And I just didn't have enough blockers for all the socks that I have done. This is Desert Vista Dyeworks Colorway HBD Charles Schultz. So happy birthday, Charles Schultz, I believe is what that stands for. And Charles Schultz is the creator of the Peanuts comic strip, and that's one of my favorites. I really do enjoy some Peanuts. So those are those socks all finished. I knit these on my normal vanilla recipe that I do, which is a 2.25 millimeter needle, 64 stitches, 20 rounds of 2x2 ribbing for the cuff, 70 rounds of leg, followed by a 42 row slip stitch, heel flap, and gusset. And regular gusset decreases every other round, how many ever rounds it takes to get to where I need to start my toe, which has been lately from the beginning of the heel to the start of the toe, roughly 90 rounds. It seems to vary. I don't know if it's my tension or the yarn or how I'm measuring it, but about 90. And then just a standard sort of wedge toe, I think is what it's called. It's the one where you decrease every other round until, for me, I get down to 10 stitches. So it looks a little funny when it's not on your foot, but when it's on the foot, it shapes and molds just fine. I have no issues with that for my foot. Okay, the next thing I have to show you are my October Desert Vista Dyeworks socks. These are in the colorway Zombody Lavender Decomp. And with the purples, greens, reds, and blacks, I thought it was very fitting for an October colorway, Halloween spooky season. So again, I do have the pair, exact same recipe. I decided to do vanilla socks for all of my 2023 socks. but I'm wanting to do something different for the Desert Vista Dyeworks cowl for 2024, just to differentiate easily what socks I knit in 2023 and what socks I knit in 2024. I'm thinking about a couple different patterns. I really do enjoy the DRK Everyday socks. Those are a toe up, so not exactly my favorite, but they have the Flegel heel, which does fit me okay, but it's not reinforced. And I find if I wear out socks, although I've not worn out any hand knit socks, but my regular store-bought socks do wear out in the heel and maybe even on the underside of the heel. So I've also considered maybe doing just a 3x1 rib. I could do that from the cuff down with the heel flap, or a 2x2 rib, and then just not rib the bottom of the foot. I don't know. I have lots of ideas. If you have a good idea. Oh, the other one that I have really considered and might very well do is the blueberry waffle socks. If you've never knit a pair of blueberry waffles, it's a free pattern. I don't even think it's on Ravelry. If you just search for blueberry socks, it's actually written for a DK weight, but easily modified if you know how to knit socks. Just adjust that to your regular stitch count for socks, which, like I said, mine's 64, and knit that up, and it's the best fitting sock. I absolutely love that. That being said, I haven't knit every sock out there, so at this point it is probably the best fitting sock, but it's not as mindless as those vanilla socks, because those I feel like me personally, I can knit on and not look, whereas, anything with a pattern, even a 3x1 or 2x2, I'm going to have to look down more, and that will slow me down. So I don't know how I feel about that. If you have thoughts, let me know. What is your go-to sock? I like knitting vanilla socks. I like how easy it is, but I like wearing them fine. I don't know. Sometimes I just enjoy a pattern. Okay. I'm losing my place here. The next thing that I have to show you is another pair of socks. This here has been worn, so I do apologize. It's not too dirty. I only wore them in my slippers around the house, but they have been on my feet. And this, I wanted to do a toe up vanilla sock so that I could get ready for my December Desert Vista Dyeworks socks. For those, I'm going scrappy, and I'm using every single yarn that I've used in the first 11 months of the year. I'm using on my 12th pair. You're allowed to do one scrappy pair a year, so that will be my scrappy pair. And I want to start from the toe up because I know they're going to be longer than my standard sock. My plan is to knit one color repeat from each of the colorways, somewhat in order, and I think that's going to be so fun. So I wanted to test out some recipes. This pattern is called the Mash Up Magic Toe Up Socks Recipe, and it's a free pattern on Ravelry. It came recommended by Karen of Karen Knits, and she knits a ton of these. So it seemed like a tried and true recipe. However, I did have to do a lot of math, which mostly worked out. I did find out, if you'll notice how differently. So this sock is my Desert Vista Dyeworks, my normal go-to recipe. And this one is the Magic Mashup Toe Up. So I'm getting it wrong. Anyway, you see what I'm saying. And this one just, it came out too big. So next time I will definitely, you can see it even, it overhangs there. So it's quite large on me. I didn't like how it fit, but a lot of that is just the length. I didn't know exactly where to stop knitting, so I could have done just a few rounds less, probably about a ½ inch less of knitting, and these would fit great. But I had such a difficult time picking up the heel flap stitches, I guess. I don't know. It was hard for me, and I decided to try something different for the second sock. So this sock looks very similar, not on a blocker, of course. It also turned out too large, but I used, starting at the heel, I used the Sockmatician's toe up sock. And although there was still a lot of math, I really liked how this heel flap turned out better. There was no picking up of the stitches, and it fits good. So I think for my December pair, I will be using the Sockmatician's toe up, knitting the foot just a little bit shorter before I start those increases, and I think that's going to work out just fine. So since these are too big for me, I plan on sending them to my mother-in-law. She has slightly larger feet than me, and I think these are going to fit her really good. I don't know if they're her colors. They might be a little bit wild for her, but she has never said she didn't like my hand knit socks. So I think she will like those. Of course, I will wash them first. Okay, the next finished object I have to show you. I have so many. This is what happens when you don't podcast for a long time. Lots of finished objects. The next one is a big one. And if you've been watching my other podcasts, you will have seen it. This is my Geogradient. It is done, and I really love it. I will pop in some photos of what it looks like on. Also, I took some outdoor photos. If you have not seen the Geogradient, real quickly, the center motif here was clue 1. The eyelets were clue 2. This beautiful oops, if I show you the right thing. This beautiful slip stitch pattern here was clue 3. And then clue 4 is the only part of the shawl that I modified, and that is the border. And there was an option to do just 1 repeat, would have been the small border, 2 repeats would have been the large border. And I went ahead and did the math for 3 repeats for an extra large border. And if you are interested in doing that to your own shawl, I do have really good notes on how to do that. It wasn't difficult to figure out, but there was some math involved, and I was so happy it turned out perfectly. So no complaints there. And I really, really love this shawl. I love how it turned out. The superwash, no, not superwash, Holst Garn Supersoft yarn really washed up nicely. It is soft and next to skin soft, I would say. If you want to hear more about this, you can watch me vlog all the way through it in my Geogradient series. If you click on my Shauna Stitches on YouTube, you'll see a list of playlists, and I do have a playlist specifically for Geogradient. Since I did say what yarn I used, it's Holst Garn Supersoft. The lightest color is called Candy Floss. The second lightest color is, I'm going to forget, Allium. Third lightest is Peony, and then the darkest color is Comfrey. So there it is. So happy to have this off the needles. I literally finished it a month to the day after the first clue came out. So very, very happy to have that off the needles. And I have one more finished object to show you. It will come as no surprise. This right here is my November Desert Vista Dyeworks finished pair of socks. There are 2. Same exact vanilla recipe that I love so much. And it's in the color, it's a Gradient Speckle Christmas. And I love this. Kind of reminiscent of some Christmas lights. It's also rainbow, which I love. And this was so much fun to knit up. I absolutely love the speckles. It's really fun when you get to a more speckly part, and I just love it. One thing, if you are new to how I knit my socks, is I like to pull from the center of the cake when I'm doing my heel flap, which is the opposite end of where I'm normally pulling from. I am definitely an outside of the cake puller because when you're done knitting, then the cake just looks perfect. You don't have to rewind it. It doesn't collapse in on itself. That is my preferred method. But so I don't mess up my stripes, starting from the inside just for the heels works out really well, and it just adds 2 extra ends to weave in. So per sock, 4 ends, not too bad. I am so excited to start those scrappy December Desert Vista Dyeworks socks. I can't cast on until December 1st, but I have already made plans, and I took a picture of all my yarns, so I will put that picture in here so you kind of get an idea. I don't know how they're all going to look together, but they're going to be very bright, that's for sure. All right, the next thing I have to talk to you about are some works in progress. And I don't have a ton because I just finished those Desert Vista Dyeworks socks this morning. And the one that I do have is losing stitches. That's not good. This here is the very small start to a Musselburgh hat by Ysolda Teague, and it looks a little different than a normal Musselburgh hat because I am knitting one strand of fingering. This is Drops Flora black, obviously. I've never used Drops yarn, and I am pairing that with a Drops Kids Silk Mohair, also in black. So this was for a work hat for me. I have to wear only certain colors, and after making my sock head slouch cowl last year in black yarns, I used a mohair and a cashmere yarn, so that one's extra fancy. That is my most favorite knit. It might be boring as heck knitting in all black, but the finished object is fantastic. So I wanted to make a hat to go with it, and let's see, I don't have any other works in progress, so I do have one kind of planned knitting. Let's talk about the planned knitting really quick, and then we'll get back to why this hasn't gotten much work. I didn't bring my yarns in here, but again, I will pop up a photo. Andrea Mowry is doing her sixth, I don't know what it's actually called, 6th year of knitting a fall project, which I think is always socks, and it's a challenge to knit it over the long weekend. So this year her pattern is called Totally Tessellated, and I looked at the pattern and knew immediately with an afterthought heel that that doesn't fit me best, and I wanted to do a slip stitch heel flap. So I asked her on an Instagram post if that would be okay to do the slip stitch heel flap, and she said, yep, if you are skilled enough to modify that, then go ahead. So I spent some time thinking about how to modify that and still have the tessellation. I will post a photo of what the socks look like so that you can see, but basically it's mosaic knitting and it's got slip stitches and it looks kind of like a checkerboard. And I just started thinking about how to do those decreases, and I've knit some other designers' socks where they do kind of a triangular decrease along the bottom of the heel, but I just didn't feel skilled enough or adventurous enough to really dive into trying to modify that. So my plan at the moment, I'm calling my version the Totally Mostly Tessellated socks because spoiler alert, I didn't buy the pattern because I'm modifying it so heavily. I have bought her tessellated pullover pattern, so I'm just using the stitches from that. I can tell by looking at it, it's exactly the same, except for, you know, how many stitches to cast on and what size needle and all that, but the stitch pattern's the same. So my plan is to cast those on and do some kind of stripy foot instead of the tessellated because of stripes you can easily decrease along the gusset decreases. So that's my plan. We'll see if they work out, but I could just buy the pattern and do the afterthought heel, but I have some afterthought heel socks and they just don't fit me very well. They're usually very tight across the instep of my foot. And I kind of think at this point in my sock knitting game, if I know something doesn't fit well, then why knit it? It just doesn't seem smart. So that's my plan for that. Anyway, back to the all black Musselburgh. And we're getting into life stuff here. So, coincidentally, the politically incorrect knitters are doing their puritanical fun run knit along, which ends at the end of November, and that is for an all black project, which I had this cast on before that started, so I was just kind of like, coincidence, it works. And I really thought I would get this finished because I wanted it for work. But I have gotten a promotion at work and I won't be outside like I normally was outside. So kind of a bummer. I still want the hat, and I definitely still will make the hat, because there will be times where I will be outside and I would like to have it. But basically, my husband and I have both had some very major changes, and mine are only just starting. Actually, his are only just starting too. So life's been stressful. My husband completely changed careers. He went from something with 15 years of experience. He was a teacher, and now he is starting a job in healthcare in a hospital. So that is very new, very different. And not only does it come with the issue of not having experience, but also a pay cut in half of what he was normally making. So that it has been difficult and stressful, especially when everything seems to cost more lately. So as if I wasn't already trying to reduce how much yarn I'm buying, that is definitely going to be a factor going forward, and how much yarn I actually can buy. And then in my job, I am moving back into the detective unit at work. But instead of just being a detective, I am the detective sergeant. So I'm in charge of the detective unit, and I am the only, well, I'm not the only one, but I am one of the few in the unit at the moment. So all the cases are coming to me. And if you watched my Geogradient vlogs, you will see that I am always on call, and I can get that call at a moment's notice and have to leave and work 20-hour shifts. And wow, it's a lot. So that's all been happening at the same time. So life has been a bit stressful. That being said, thank goodness for knitting. It really does help me get through some of the stressful things. Unfortunately, I can't always do it when I'm like the most stressed, but when I get home and I can decompress a little bit, it does help. That being said, what else did I have to say about life stuff? I think that's a lot of it, without going into too much detail. I have been watching a really good show, which I haven't heard anyone else talk about. My husband and I, during October, we started watching or looking for scary shows to watch, to be part of the spooky season celebration. And we came across, I'm trying to remember what platform it was on. I want to say it might be Disney Plus, which we have now canceled for obvious financial reasons, but we still have Hulu, and we have found it on Hulu. So it's called Goosebumps. And do you guys remember the Goosebumps books? Man, that's hard to say. Goosebumps books from when you were a kid. And I didn't really read them, but I think my brother did, and Glenn said that he did. So I thought these are going to be very juvenile and not really very scary, but actually it's really good. And I don't know, there might be 10 or so episodes out now, and they seem to be coming out every Friday. I had thought that after Halloween was over that they would end the season, but the last episode was just aired, not the last, but the most recent episode was just aired on the 17th of November. So it's still going, it's still good, and I highly recommend that show. It's scary, but just scary enough, like not overly scary where, you want to like hide your eyes or something. And it's not gory, because I don't do gory. I just don't like it. I see enough of that at work for real, and the movies are not very realistic, and I don't enjoy it. I have also seen so many people reading the Fourth Wing Iron Flame series, and I kind of want to read it, but I don't know. So what I did was get a sample of Fourth Wing on my Kindle, and I've just barely started it, but I think I like it. I think I like it enough to buy a Kindle version. But so far, what I kind of gather, because I'm not the most into fantasy, but if I had to sum it up for the very minimal little bit that I know of reading, like 10 pages, 15 pages, it seems to be sort of a combination of Harry Potter and Hunger Games, which I enjoyed both of those immensely, so I'm here for that. Now that I am getting ready to wrap up, I remembered there is something I wanted to show you all I'm so excited about. So just one second, I will be right back. How could I forget? One of the things you've heard me talk about on my episodes, is quilting. And it's something that I've been interested in off and on, and I will kind of get like the bug to do it, but then I realize it's hard and I'm not very good at it. So then I kind of pull back from working on it. But recently, a non-knitting friend of mine who I have on Facebook, she started quilting. And then I found out there's a quilt shop in town, which may or may not be sort of influencing me to think about buying a newer sewing machine, but I haven't made that purchase yet. But I wanted to do a sort of beginner's quilt along. And so I went to the quilt shop, and the ones that they had just didn't interest me. And I don't know, I didn't think I would stay motivated to quilt something that I didn't like. I think the pattern that they were going to be doing was these houses. Each quilt block would be a different house for the month, and another one might have been trucks, but I can't remember now. Oh, and another one was just these wall hangings for the month. And it was kind of like, I could see that if you were a teacher or someone really into decorating and changing your decor every month, how you might like these, but that isn't me. That's too much work and I can't be bothered. So I found this 2023 Sew With Me Quilt Along by Erica Arndt on YouTube, and she also has her own website where she has patterns you can buy, but these sew alongs are completely free. You can download the PDF for the pattern on her page, and she has a YouTube video for each of them. And she takes you through step by step and has really dumbed it down enough for me to be successful. The one thing I do wish that she would cover is how to cut the pattern pieces out. I am getting better on that on my own, and I have watched other YouTube videos, which I couldn't even tell you. I couldn't even list what ones are good or not because I've watched so many. But the cutting has been sort of a trial and error. I'm still getting better at it, but she goes through everything else. What way to press your seams, how to butt the seams up so that you get a nice corner. And I have, not on every single day off, but I've pretty much been quilting one design every day that I do it. I just work on one because I'm behind since it's November. But let me show you what we have. So I have no idea the names of these, but this was the first quilt block, and I am quite happy with it. This is 12.5 inches square, but there's also a option to make a 6.5 inch square also. And at the end, when all the blocks are out, she's supposed to tell us how to finish them. So technically this is for 2 separate quilts. So I will have a large one and a small one. And that's block 1. I'm using the same fabrics for both blocks, but I am trying to change them up so they don't match. I'm still getting better at combining fabrics. I'm realizing that I don't love really big prints. Like, I'm drawn to those when I look at an entire piece of fabric because they look so cool, but then they just end up getting cut up a lot and it doesn't look very good. So this is block 2. This is probably, looking at it, it was my least favorite, but I actually really enjoyed sewing it together. But that being said, where is it? Yes, you see right here. So this white piece is not 12.5 inches. I think I can fudge it when I'm putting it all together, but this was only block 2, so I'm still learning. There's the tiny version. So one thing that I have learned, which might be useful to you if you would like to get into quilting, is what they call a scant 1/4 inch. Here's block 3. So once I started using a scant 1/4 of an inch, which is sewing just before the 1/4 of an inch, it really, really helped my blocks be so much better, because what it does is gives you just a little bit to trim off at the end. So if you do a scant on everything and you trim your blocks as you go, then you have just that little bit to trim off, and instead of that block that I have that's too small, you end up being able to trim it to the right size. So that is block 3. And of course I have a mini block 3. So yeah, I don't know, if you look at this brighter blue, that is kind of a fern print. And then even this teal one, that has a lot of print as well. And it just doesn't work well when you have to cut it up so much. So that's a learning experience. Here is block 4. Again, you can see I use some of my larger prints. So I have some dragonflies and some butterflies on there. And my white on white fabric, obviously, if you hold it back here, it doesn't look too obvious. But when you hold it really close, you can really see those flowers. And I think the light really reflects off of those. So it's not as obvious in person. But I think, as much as I like it, I think I wouldn't pick that next time. There is, are we in block 3? 4. I've lost track now. I think this is 4. So I do like these better. You see there, I use butterflies. Again, it just really, it cuts them up so much. Here is block 5. And the small version of block 5. Only one more to go. I just did this one yesterday. This is block 6. I really like this one. But again, the dragonflies are all cut up, which I don't love. And tiny block 6. For this one, I haven't done a lot of combining the teal with the pink. I have more teal and blue fabrics than I have pink fabrics, and I even have a couple purple that don't show up very often. But I'm trying to combine the colors because I think that should look better. I don't know. If you look at the designers, she's making a small Christmas version, which has reds, greens, and whites. And then her large version is all reds with a white background. So it seems to me I would have been smarter to go in one color family, like all teals. But I kind of thought of it like we do knitting, where you have your contrast color. So pink contrasts well with a green on the color wheel. And that was my thought process. Also, let me just show you. Let me find the block where it's in. I'm not confident with picking my colors. So what I did was I fell in love with this butterfly with the Birds of Paradise flowers fabric. And I really just picked colors that were in that, because I do know when it comes to fabric choices that if you find a fabric like that you like, and then you pick all colors that are in that, then they're going to go. The thing I think I shouldn't have done is actually buy the fabric that was my inspiration. I think I should have just picked colors from that. Anyhow, it is a learning experience and it's a lot of fun, and I really can't wait to see what that's going to look like when it's finished. So if you're at all thinking about quilting, have tried it before, have been unsuccessful, I can definitely recommend Erica's tutorials. And I don't know, I'm guessing her other patterns are just as fantastic. She seems to have quite a lot of tutorials on YouTube, and the way that I have been most successful is I watch the tutorial first, just watch it all the way through. And then as I'm actually making the blocks, I re-watch it, and I will just pause. I will get to one section and I'll watch what I'm supposed to do, pause, align my fabrics the way they need to be, take them to the sewing machine, watch the part where it says about which way to press the seams, and then go on to the next step. So each little step. I don't think I could follow a pattern on my own yet, but it is really nice to have that resource. So I think that's it. We've talked about finished objects, works in progress, upcoming works in progress, a little bit of quilting, and some life stuff. So thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate each and every one of you for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. And if you have any comments or questions for me, I am always so happy to see those. Just leave them down below, and I really do respond to everyone, I think. So if I've missed you and you had a question, just please ask again, because I think I have addressed them all. So that being said, I'm going to end this here. Have a wonderful upcoming Thanksgiving if you celebrate. I hope that you are able to have the day off and spend that with friends and family. All right, I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.